Today's guest set up her first business when her son was just 3 months old. After an appearance on Dragon's Den, shaking hands on a deal with Peter Jones, she finds herself without a business 3 years later. Listen to the inspiring story of Jules White and how she moved on to build the successful business she has today. Welcome to So Pleased I Did It, presented by me, Jean Fleming, an empowerment and leadership coach specialising in helping women make changes in their lives. In this podcast series, I meet inspiring women who have made significant changes, be it career, family, lifestyle, or education. I learn why and how they did it and get an insight into the challenges and ultimately the outcomes they discovered. So sit back and get ready to be inspired to make the change you want in your life. Today's guest is author, TEDx speaker, podcaster, and she also helps people win at sales with the art of human conversation. Welcome, Jules.
Oh, hello, Jean. It's so nice to be on your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, gosh, there's so much to dig in with you. There's so many different facets to your life. It's hard to know where to start. But I guess tell me first about what you think was the turning point for you that brought so much change about in your life.
Gosh, well, I suppose there's been a few, but the big one was when I had my first business, which was back in 2005. So this was a business I started when my son was 3 months old.
Crazy.
I say that slow.
Crazy.
It was mad, wasn't it? But I wanted to do something that meant I could still be with Sam, which is the irony, really. So I started this business, which was party plan selling baby products, because nobody was doing it. We were all having parties like Tupperware and underwear and you name it, but nobody was doing it with baby products. So I just started this business. And it absolutely took off. I mean, partly because I went into Dragon's Den. That's kind of another story. But it just took off and it flew. And it meant I actually didn't have as much time with Sam as I wanted. But actually 3 years after I'd started it, it was really great and quite successful. I actually lost everything. There's obviously, as I said to you, more to that story. But that, for me, if answering your question, was a turning point, because that was that pit moment. I think everyone has a kind of pit moment in their life. I don't know what you think, Jean. And you just say, right, I've got to start again. And that was really my pit moment, was that. And it was 2008. And then ever since then, well, I've just grown and learnt all about myself over again.
So briefly tell the audience about your experience with Dragon's Den.
Yeah, so that was a bit mad. So I'd started the business when Sam was 3 months. And by the time he was 5 months, I was whizzing around and I'd got a website. I'd made a catalogue of all these amazing products at the parties. I'd recruited consultants to go out and do the parties, and I was building an empire. And then I was sat on my table at 7 o'clock in the morning, having just fed Sam. And I saw this application thing pop up saying, we're looking for applicants for Dragon's Den. Well, this was only the second series. This is way, way back. I think they're on about the 18th series now. So I filled it in. And I thought, I love a bit of this. This would be great. Laughed, had a little chuckle. By 9 o'clock, the BBC were on the phone saying, we love your idea. Can you come to Television House tomorrow? So I did. I sort of pitched to a camera in a little meeting room, went home again. And then 2 weeks later, I was in front of and filming in front of these 5 rich dragons pitching Truly Madly Baby. And I suppose, you can probably find, well, it's hard to find the actual full pitch, but I've got a little best bits snippet on my YouTube channel if anyone wants to know. But I ended up having Theo Paphitis and Peter Jones pitching against each other to invest in my business, which is hilarious, really. So that was kind of the upshot of being in the den. It was all a bit of a blur.
And did you go forward with one of them?
Well, I shook hands with Peter on the programme, but there's a big 6-month gap between when you film and when it actually goes out for everybody to see. And in between time, we had contracts and we said no because they just weren't right. My solicitor didn't want me to sign. Right. So we didn't do the deal. But on the television, obviously we did. And that was the moment it came out, I think in the October, November. And that was when we had 2,500 emails in the inbox. We had people going, we love this.
And did you have people helping you by this point then?
No. I was still doing it all on my own, but I was, I'd built, probably when it came onto the telly, I had about 26 consultants. So I'd increased organically by about 20 consultants right across the UK. And then when it hit the telly, that's when we had this big spike. So by Christmas, we were looking at about 60 odd consultants, which is huge growth when I'm inducting all of them and training them all and packing all their kits. And
you'd still only been in business for a matter of months at that point.
Yes. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was really mad time. But by year 3, we turned over $1 million and we had profit and 430 consultants across the whole country with inquiries from America, Australia and Europe. So it was really exciting as a journey. But sadly, we hadn't set everything up how we should. I had another investor on board and we needed more investment, that second layer of investment to buy lots of things like systems, stock, have people, employ people was like a real biggie. I was doing most of it on my own with a couple of people helping. And the investor wanted 75% of the business for whatever money she put in, and she'd put anything in. She was uncapped. It was such a big chunk to give her. And she closed me down. And then she bought it back pretty much the next day and I lost everything. That was the pit moment.
yeah, I'm not surprised. But I think the story goes on that in the end, she wasn't successful at running the business without you.
No, she wasn't. And she took, quite a few years to discover that. But sadly, in 2016, it closed completely for good. Which was really sad, actually, because it was my baby and I'd started it. So
it was like losing your baby twice, really.
Well, it was quite. I actually say in my TEDx talk, it was like a grief losing that business, because it was so attached to Sam and intrinsic in having him. But yeah.
So you hit your trigger point to go on to your next thing. What was that then?
Well, my next thing was I was 40 years old. I was unemployed, bankrupt, and a single mum. So that was a fairly dire place. So I actually had to go and get a job. So for quite a few years, I worked for people, which was horrible. Only because it was like I'd gone backwards 10 years. I'd already built myself up a really great career and I was a successful salesperson. Then I had a business, which was successful. And then it was like, I've got to start again. I've got to go on the road and I've got to sell again. So that was hard. But then I was a head of sales and then I was a sales director. So I built my career back again, which was wonderful for what I do today. So
brilliant. So how does that lead into how you are where you are today?
Yeah, so the last job I had where I worked for somebody, I had a redundancy because, they got to a point where they needed to change all of their business model. And I was one of the casualties, but was given 3 months' money, which was super because I think at that point it was like, I really don't want to work for anyone again. And I hadn't necessarily imagined having my own business again, but that's exactly what I did. So I said, I'm going to be a coach. It was just a sudden decision. I'm going to do something really different. I'll be a coach. And then I had a conversation with my old boss from Yellow Pages and he said, what are you going to coach? And I said, everything, anything. I can coach the lot. I've been through it all. And he sort of said to me, why aren't you doing sales, Jules? You were so good at sales, Yeah. So it kind of had a light bulb moment. And I created a business that was all around helping people to fall in love with sales.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, and that was the start of the Live It, Love It, Sell It journey, which is the business I run today.
And what point did you write your book then?
So this was 2017 that I started the business. And then by August 2018, I'd finished writing and I published in October 2018. My book, which was, again, I called it Live It, Love It, Sell It. And it was really a creation of a methodology, a new way of looking at sales. That was what it was all about, really.
And timing, from my perspective, it was perfect because it was just as I was setting up my business and your book was pivotal in giving me my direction, basically, and
so
coming
good.
up with my signature program as well. So I've always connected with you on that basis of your book. So tell us then about how your TEDx story came into all of this.
Yeah, gosh, yeah, that was just a surprise. I always hoped one day I might get to do a talk on stage. I've done a lot of speaking after Dragon's Den, would you believe? And I was sort of thrown into that, but I quite enjoyed it. But then when I started this business, I hadn't done any speaking. But I started to dip my toe again because I wanted to tell everybody about my methodology. And I was at an event where the curator for TEDx Brighton was also at this event, and he spoke. And he just said to me at the end that he had completely connected with my talk, and he really enjoyed it. And we kind of connected on Facebook and LinkedIn and the likes. And actually what I didn't do was say, I would love a TEDx talk. I really held back because I desperately wanted to say that to him. But I bought a ticket for TEDx Brighton, which was in October 2018. So it was actually the same month I launched my book. And I bought the ticket to go and watch. And 7 days before the event, I got a message from the curator guy, and he said, you've got 7 days, are you in? And I said, sorry, are you joking? Was this for me? And he said, yeah. He said, I'm absolutely serious. He said, I've got somebody who's sick and they really can't make it. I couldn't think of anyone else I wanted to stand on the stage.
Brilliant.
And so it was TEDx Brighton, 1,600 people at TEDx Brighton. It's a biggie. It's in the Brighton Dome. And it's also invite only. So it's that moment where you go, oh my goodness, this couldn't ever happen again, So within 7 days, I was stood on the TEDx stage doing my talk.
What is it with you that you get these last minute invitations for these high profile events? Brilliant.
But I think, Jean, if I had too long to think about these things, I'd be rubbish at them. So I think I live on the edge.
Yeah, but you are a natural speaker, so it's it plays well to your strengths, I think. So from the experience then of Truly Madly Baby and Live It, Love It, Sell It, and all of the experiences you've had, what do you find has been the most challenging things for you?
Loneliness, I think, actually. I was talking about this in a post only the other day on LinkedIn. I think when you run a business as that kind of solopreneur, it's really quite lonely. You can create a tribe around you. Often it's an online type of tribe. And I've learned that. But I find it really hard to reach out for help. I'm quite a hero. So if there's something going wrong, I need to get through it, and I know that about myself. So I think when I ran Truly Madly Baby, the reason I didn't have a team of people was because I was just doing it all myself. And there's an element of control freak. There's no doubt that there's probably that too in there. But I think loneliness is really hard when you're running a business. And I just encourage anyone who's listening to know there are people you can connect with who will support you. And it's wonderful to build that just a little mini tribe around you who you can go to when you're having those days where you're struggling. So, yeah, I'd say that was...
I've got to say that resonates with me as well. You really have to make the effort to put yourself out there to connect with people and have virtual coffees.
Yeah, definitely.
So what would you say were your biggest lessons from going through setting up your own businesses and making such significant changes in your life, throughout your life, really?
Well, I'm quite a spontaneous person, which I think can be really good and really bad. I think one of my lessons is to perhaps do things a little bit slower sometimes, because then you don't miss some of the detail, because I'm not big on detail. So I really learned from Truly Madly Baby, it was just set up wrong. We tried to run before we could walk. And we ran really fast and it was amazing, but we couldn't then back it all up. So it's making all those foundations of anything you do, just think, well, actually, what are the foundations I need if this really works so that it continues to work? I think that was such a big lesson for me. And I've done that so much in this business, so much more than I ever did. I still do probably more things than I should do. I should still ask for help more. But I think when I plan stuff now, I'm much more thorough in deciding what's going to be able to work. At what point can I launch and it will be successful, for instance, with various products. So I've definitely learned that. Yeah.
And it gives you a much stronger foundation, doesn't it? I mean, you see all these adverts around, make 7 figures in, overnight, and it just doesn't really work like that. It's such false advertising, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So what would you say are the benefits to you of the life that you have now?
Yeah, well, the benefits are definitely, it's my time. I'm the boss, so I kind of do it how I want to do it. Again, I probably don't do it as smart as I could because I'm a workaholic, but I think it's nice having the flexibility. I have Sam. I mentioned Sam. Well, he's 15 now. Mm-hmm. So you imagine he's so much bigger. He's taller than me now. And he's now going through GCSE years. He had lockdown, as we all did, through the pandemic. So he was at home learning. If I didn't run my own business, I probably couldn't have spent the time I did with him the way I did. I think. I think I've had a lot more flexibility to do that. So I love that. And I love how creative I'm able to be in this business. I've got nobody saying to me, well, we've always done it like this, so we shouldn't do it that way. I'm really free to run this business how I want to run it, and I love that. That's amazing.
Not answerable to anybody. So if you were going to do it all again, I mean, you've already talked about your learning from Truly Madly Baby into Live It, Love It, Sell It. What other things would you or might you do differently? Even, you talk now about being a workaholic, so there's still development for you in that sense.
Definitely. There's definitely time management development that I need to do so that I actually stop and I go and have a walk, and I do the me stuff. I've started to block my diary out and put me time in my diary, which is really helpful. And that's definitely working. I think the other thing I would do is, or I've learned, I suppose, is that I do need to sometimes get help. And whilst I'm not good at it, I have got a lady now who is doing some writing for me. Now, I mean, that's the big thing for me to let go of. I'm an author, and I'm not this like wonderful seasoned writer as such, but I like to write as me, my voice. And I've let this lady kind of help me with my newsletter and some blogging. And it's been really big for me to do that. But my goodness, it's released all this time, that then I can use doing other stuff. So I think there's a really big thing about being smart when you're working as an entrepreneur. I really, really do. Especially if you're working as a solopreneur, then I think you've got to be really smart with your time.
Yeah. And I think also when you outsource things like that, you still have the final say and the final write-off. But at least it's some words on paper rather than starting from a blank piece yourself, which is quite helpful sometimes.
Well, I think the other thing, Jean, is I always say to my clients, if you're putting out content, get visible, be regular, be consistent with when you put your posts out and stuff. That doesn't mean every single day. It just means that just be there and keep showing up. And of course, if it's always down to me with that workload, I'm not always going to be consistent in how I show up at some point. So yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about your book and your methodology then for anybody that's listening and interested in sales.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, I sold for 32 years, mainly in companies, in corporate. And it was very much that old school 80s push, yucky, close the deal stuff. And I was determined I didn't want to go out in the world with that message. And what I had done all my career was actually build relationships and have conversations and be me. Mm-hmm. And I knew I'd done that. And I'd hit every target they'd given me. So I was thinking, there's something about this. This works. So the methodology is about, live it is where you start with you, actually, because that's where most of the fear comes from around sales, certainly for entrepreneurs. So this is about checking in with you and your why and why you're doing what you're doing. And the fact you are good at selling because you've been selling since you were a child, the fact that life skills are sales skills. Then love it's all around your ideal client. So this is about really understanding their emotions, not who they are, what age they are and where they live, as much as how they're feeling, because we actually connect on a very emotional level when we buy. And then from there, the sell it's about traveling the sales road trip. So this is the get visible, get curious and get helping. So this is all about just putting yourself out there as true you. because actually you'll attract people much more than you have to keep pushing. You'll actually be pulling people into you. And that's the outcome of the methodology.
Yeah, I love that line that you said around life skills are sales skills, because you get so many people that say, oh, I hate selling, and yet they're really good at building relationships and having conversations, but they don't connect the two.
No, they don't. And I always talk about going for a coffee with your friend. You know, if you go to have a coffee with somebody, even if it's somebody new, you know, in your personal life, then you do not get a piece of paper out your pocket and start reading off questions. You know, this whole scripting piece around sales, that we've got to trust we can do it ourselves. We do know how to have conversations. So we've done it for years. And I guess that's what I try and instill when I do my coaching. So
brilliant. So Jules, if there's any listeners who are looking to maybe do something different, make change to their life, what would your advice be to them?
I think just try and find, maybe go online, you know, follow people, look at people's content and find people that feel good. Trust your gut. If somebody really feels good, have a virtual couple with them, a bit like we did, Jean. And just trust your instinct, because usually where we connect with the right people, it's because we share the same values. So I think there's a whole piece around that feeling good about somebody, and they're the people then that you follow and get to help you with moving forward with your business in all the areas that you want to. There's lots of experts out there who are actually really good experts. You will know, your gut will tell you whether they're the good experts, I think is the big advice.
Yeah. And I think so some of our listeners, the change that they might want might be a career change. They might not want to set up their own business, but the same advice really does apply. You know, follow people that interest you and can support you in moving into the direction you want to go in.
Yeah, and learn from them, you know, follow their stories. Stories are wonderful. The more we hear stories of people, they're inspiring, aren't they? So,
yeah, completely.
That's another good thing to do. I think books, audio books nowadays, podcasts, all these things are really inspiring.
Yeah, definitely. And if people want to connect with you, how do they contact you?
Yeah, well, if you put Live It, Love It, Sell It into our friend Google, you'll pretty much find everything about me, which is wonderful. And my website is liveitloveitsellit.co.uk. And I've also just started a membership. So that's another really cost-effective way of connecting and being part of my community. So
Brilliant. So Jules, any regrets, or are you so pleased you did it?
I'm so pleased I did it. Never regret.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to So Pleased I Did It with me, Jean Fleming. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe, tell your friends, share on social media and review on iTunes. Thanks for listening.